Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. OpTic's first match of the stage begins tonight, and they will try and ensure that their control gets significantly better this time around. It's been their worst game mode so far this season, but Shotzzy says the introduction of Expo into the pool into their fortress is potentially going to be massive for them. Not only do they like the map a lot, but also they are very good at it, according to Mr. Hicksy himself. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss. Starting, of course, with that remarkable series last night, Los Angeles Thieves versus the Seattle Surge. This I thought was definitely going to be an interesting series, and it was, but Envoy was the standout man in this one, right? I mean, Pred didn't have the greatest map won by his standards. He did have a ridiculously good search and destroy, though, for the loss, but it was Envoy who's, I would say, been flying somewhat under the radar so far this season in terms of individual performance. Like, Kenny so far this year has been, like, he's been okay, Kenny, for sure. Usually he gets better and better as the year goes on, but Envoy has had some great series and is probably underrepresented in the kind of MVP conversations, to be honest, because so far this year he's been generally very good, and this I think was a real standout series for him to show, like, I'm not going away anytime soon. And Thieves, a real statement series from them, because they had a great result earlier in the weekend. They took down London in about 30 minutes, and then they played obviously a challenging team in Seattle Surge, certainly in the respawn modes, and they did an admirable job, all things considered. So game one goes their way here on Hydro. Then Pred, man, honestly, I can't believe how much this guy has to do on Embassy Search and Destroy for them not to win the game. It was the same thing at the Major against FaZe, right, in the game 5 on Embassy when he dropped like 18 or 17 kills for the loss. Here he goes 15 in 6 and they lose. Pred must be getting fed up, right, of just carrying his team on his back in these Search and Destroys on Embassy, getting all the first bloods, all the damage, all the engagements, and still they can't seem to close out the rounds or the map. So that must have been painful. In fairness for Surge, they did bounce back in this control. Now I know that Thieves will say that they probably felt like they should have won this one, but in the end, Seattle did find a way to get over the line. Thieves almost made a comeback in this control as they did in the Search and Destroy. The Surge, they were down like a good 4-1 or something, and they came out to win in round 11, so that wasn't pretty for Surge, and Thieves did quite well to put this to a round 5, but Surge took it in the end, but it didn't matter at the end of the day, because Envoy again was too much to handle in the game 4, and that was job done for the team. So well played for Los Angeles Thieves, and look, they're kind of up and down. They're a team that's going to go usually somewhere between 3-2, 4-1 online, maybe 2-3 at times if they have a particularly difficult schedule. Probably not this time around though, and this was the time last year, at least in terms of Major cycle. Major 4 last year they won, Champs last year they won, so this is their time to come good, and if Envoy is playing like that, anything is possible with this roster, and even as Kenny says, Dylan is final, love that out of him. So phenomenal performance of Envoy individually. His like pure slaying numbers here were remarkable, and he also now has, again, he has either reclaimed the lead or as always had the lead in 30 bombs, so I believe he was right up at the top there, and now again he's number 1 with 18 30 bombs so far this year. And some players, like, it's funny in a way that some players have a couple of 40 bombs but not that many 30 bombs, all things considered, but Envoy has the most in the entire league, which is very impressive. Like, when he takes over and gets 30 kills, they will usually win the map. Now even Puckett gave his thoughts on Pred here. Pred is that guy, teammate who always carries more than his load. If I'm a GM, I'm cuffing this player to my org and asking him what he needs. I don't know if Seattle Surge will have the luxury of keeping Pred around. There's obviously many teams that might potentially want him. OpTic are potentially going to be one of them, but also who knows what's going to happen with FaZe. We know that last season they wanted Shotzzy and he was going to join before Scump decided to actually play again. Who knows what happens there. Obviously Los Angeles Thieves, they're an organization that wants to win championships. They haven't done that so far this year. If they fall short in the last couple of tournaments, who knows what happens there. So many questions, but I feel like Pred staying on Seattle Surge has got to be like a good, 20-25% chance right now. Unless they can really build a team that he wants around him, it's more likely, especially because he's an unrestricted free agent. His contract, to our understanding, is coming to an end, that he's not just going to go to another team. That gives him an offer with a team that he thinks is more likely to be able to come out on top. But look at these numbers, right? Accuracy, got to give him credit, because especially in that control, he was doing incredibly well. So I guess Ramadan accuracy comes different this year, but the second most damage in the lobby behind Envoy, so great series from him. But yeah, 111 kills for Envoy. You don't often see over 100 in a series, certainly not in 4 maps. So 111 for a 1.46, remarkable stuff, and it's pretty standard stuff for the rest of Los Angeles Thieves. So impressive performance from them so far. Did also want to give a quick follow-up here to what happened in Minnesota, well, it was in Wisconsin, right, for the Minnesota Rokkr home series. Bit of drama around that last night, and I will say it was nice to see from Marky and also from Arcitys. Now, he initially tweeted this outright saying, you know, almost seemed a bit checked out before the series they played, saying, oh yeah, damn, Rokkr just came in and smoked Florida in 45 minutes, so, you know, here we come, probably going to get eaten up in the same way. But they had their chances, they squandered the potential series result, and as he says, free all day besides all the trolls, shout out Rokkr for having us. It was a great match, unfortunately couldn't win it, but an amazing venue. So I think this is quite nice here from Arcitys, and it's a bit of a controversial one, right? The players don't want to play at any potential disadvantage. Them playing in a LAN setting is good, but them playing in front of kind of the opposing fans is not so good for their chance. Fundamentally, it shouldn't make a difference, but we know in Call of Duty and other games, it does. So it's a bit of a debate what's better, because this is certainly good for the scene and for the Rokkr and for the fans, but for the players and also for the other teams that are potentially fighting for World Championship qualification, it's not ideal for them from a fairness perspective, but Arcitys, you know, admits that it was great to do it, amazing venue, really cool. Like, the players are here to play in front of the fans at the end of the day, but, you know, bit of a controversial one. We discussed it in quite some detail last night. Want to discuss the OpTic situation, though, because lots of talk about this team so far, that if they can level up their control, that's where these guys can get to the next level. I mean, we've had 6 different grand finals teams in the 3 events so far this season. The first event that was all the way back in December now, New York Subliners won over the Seattle Surge in the finals. Then, of course, Major 2 in Boston, it was FaZe that took down Los Angeles Thieves, and recently, Toronto got the better of OpTic in their backyard. But I think, honestly, that kind of run that they had towards the end of the tournament was inspired in part by a better performance in control. I believe they won 3 of their last 4 controls they played in that major run, and that is going to be crucial for them, because last season, Dashy especially was unbelievable for at least half the year on Tuscan control. He probably had a good 1.6 KD on average on defense on Tuscan. It was outrageous how good they were at that map. They won on a massive win streak, and I believe they probably still hold the record for the longest control win streak in CDL history. But, you know, that went away this year pretty dramatically, with OpTic's control now being their worst mode all of a sudden. So, bit of a confusing trends, and it was the case with Scump early in the season, and it was in fairness the case since they changed their roster around. So that is the key part to improve on. They decided to play a lot of Fortress in the few weeks leading up to the major. Controversially, from the fan perspective, many fans saw like, why are OpTic playing Fortress again, Mickey Mouse map and all this, and they would usually lose it in round 5. However, Fortress is now gone, Expo control is now in, and it is a map when you look at it where a guy like Shotzzy, who does movement like this on the daily, is probably going to have a bit of a field day. And I think you can see with some of the map design decisions and the way that SMGs can finesse around the place that Shotzzy is probably going to love this map. You can just tell the way it's laid out that Shotzzy's going to have a good time here, and that apparently seems to be the case. Shotzzy mentioned on stream very recently that since Expo's come into the map pool, OpTic have practiced it, and they are a big fan. Shotzzy especially is a big fan of the way the map plays, and he says that's not just because we're very good at it. It's basically confirming that they are very good at this map in their practice. They rarely ever lose it from what they've played so far. Expo control into the map pool, but he likes it not just because they're good, but actually because he feels like it plays significantly better than Fortress did. It might not be fantastic, but it should well be good enough. And this could be of massive importance to OpTic as the season goes on.
Dude, I think it plays good, bro. Like, no bullshit. I'm actually so hyped for this shit, dude. Bro, it plays good as dude. I'm not trolling. I promise you. And I'm not saying that because like we're good at the map. I'm just saying it based off like the way it plays. At least so far, don't get me wrong. We've only played it like 4 times. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just comparing it to Fortress, bro. Like, at least when I get spawn trap, I could actually coordinate something with a teammate instead of yo, like, you know, go through maps, you know, try to feels good. Even if you kill them, there's other people watching that same exit. You know what I'm saying?
We know that most teams right now aren't a massive fan of Expo control. Some teams play it. We've seen Boston versus Vegas play it on day 1. I think over time we're going to see more and more of this come into play as other teams actually decide to start playing it. But many teams, especially in the bottom half of the league, didn't like it. They wanted Fortress control, it seems, to stay. And there was some expectation that maybe every team will just automatically veto it in every series. But the issue is, if you do that, of course, then your opposition gets to decide what other map gets vetoed, and they get to get rid of your best map. So we saw yesterday the rumors, well, Shotzzy leaked it basically, that they'd played Rokkr and their Academy and not lost a map in scrims, including, I imagine, Expo control in both of these series, where they probably had a rather good time. And if OpTic's opposition that don't like Expo, because I don't believe London like Expo, if they were to forfeit that, or if they were to veto that, sorry, every single series they played against OpTic, then OpTic get to decide, like, if the opposition's going to veto Expo, do we play Hotel, do we play LSE? That's the choice that OpTic have, and that's a pretty important choice, right? Because OpTic generally seem to like Hotel. They're not, I don't think, massive fans of aBeZy. If you look at their record, they're actually 3-5 on aBeZy, 7-8 on Hotel, but it's 1-5 in Fortress, and that has been crucial for them. Many series they played over the past couple of months or so, they would go to Fortress Game 3 in a situation where, I mean, control is so important, right? If it's a 1-1 series, going to 2-1 or to 1-2 is generally a massive deal. I don't exactly know what the percentage chances are you win a series if you win the control, but it's got to be quite significant relative to some of the other maps, maybe apart from map 5, of course. If you win map 5, you always win the series. But yeah, 1-5 in Fortress was, I think, a key piece. If you look at their entire map pool here, like their hardpoint 28 in 19, their search and destroy just above 50%, but it's their control that's been letting them down largely. And okay, in the grand finals on the final day of the tournament wasn't quite the case, but still early on in their losers run, it was still holding them back somewhat, and getting a clean 3-0 victory is tricky if your control is shoddy as it has been. So if they can stay as good as they are and get a bit better on Hotel and aBeZy, but they're very good at Expo and they force teams to either veto it against them or they get to play it from time to time, then that gives OpTic a huge edge in that game 3, which, I mean, look, we've seen it with Toronto, we saw it with FaZe in Major 2, they won that event by being godlike in search and destroy, but Toronto winning Major 3, they did it in all the modes. Toronto weren't spectacular in any mode necessarily, but they were better than every team on the average of all the modes. And when you've got a weakness, as either OpTic had in control or potentially still have, or like FaZe have in their hard point, that is going to hold you back on a consistent basis. So tweet your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Just did want to comment as well, because Dominic came up with an idea from the London side, how to make this more equitable, because it's obviously, you know, we're talking the Rokkr home series again. Good thing in general for the league, but if they could manage to find a way for every team to be required to host one of the 15 game weeks a year to avoid the kind of unfair precedent, if there was a way for every team to be able to host one of those kind of weekends or something, then that would be great. Ideally, we want everything to be done on LAN in front of fans, and if it's not in front of fans, it should be on LAN. So, you know, can you get the teams to agree to this? Probably not. The teams don't want to pay for it. Rokkr seemingly was willing to, unless the CDL wants to put up the money, and I doubt that's going to be the case. So probably wishful thinking on that one. Tweet your thoughts in the comments below. These, though, are the 3 games of today. So some 3 really interesting games. The last one should be straightforward for FaZe. I think they're going to bounce back here. FaZe, we know they love going something like 3 into every single split, so they'll probably win today. The first 2 games, though, are interesting for different reasons. Toronto lost yesterday to the Boston Breach, and now they play a tricky Seattle Surge team. Very good on the respawns. The search and destroy, I would favor Ultra, though, so I do feel like Ultra in 5 I'll take here, but I think this is going to be a competitive series. If Surge can make slightly fewer mistakes than they did yesterday, and if Ultra don't play at the level they played at the Major, and if Scrappy and CleanX don't go off as they were doing consistently, this could get really tasty. And London versus OpTic, right, a rematch of the first round in losers at their home Major, where London were on the edge of winning and went down in game 5 to OpTic when OpTic made that crazy run, starting with this series that was very close indeed. Now, obviously, since the change London have made, they looked woeful against Thieves a couple of days ago. I do expect them to look somewhat more competitive here. OpTic will go in with a lot of confidence, and we'll have to be careful not to be overconfident, but I'm excited to see if we do get any Expo control to exactly see what Shotzzy's talking about as to why they might be so good at it. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.